Hello everyone. In this video lesson, I will give the explanation about the first lesson summary. Yes. How I taught my grandmother to read. Written by Sudha Murthy. Written by Sudha Murthy. Sudha Murthy is an Indian businesswoman, educator, author, and philanthropist. The present story is taken from the collection of How I Taught My Grandmother to Read. So, in the story, Sudhamurthy describes the determined efforts of her illiterate grandmother named Krishnaka to make herself literate and read a novel on her own. So, here she decided to read a novel on her own. The grandmother set the deadline and achieved the target next to impossible within the time set for it. She was able to read the novel Kashi Yatra, Triveni's popular story that novel name Kashi Yatra in the Kannada language on her own at age 62. She was helped by her young grandmother who acted as her only teacher. The grandmother provided that there is no age bar for learning. So here Sudhamurthy was the granddaughter of Krishnaka. Krishnaka is the grandmother of Sudhamurthy. So, Triveni's popular novel Kashi Yatra. In Kannada, famous novel Kashi Yatra. The narrator was a girl of about 12. So here, who is narrator here? Sudhamurthy was our narrator. At the age of only 12 years old, it is the past tense story, completed story. She was sharing her thoughts about us. She used to stay in a village in North Karnataka with her grandparents. At that time, Triveni was a very popular writer in the Kannada language. She was a wonderful writer. Her style was easy to read and quite convincing. Her stories dealt with the complex problems in the lives of ordinary people. One of her novels, Kashi Yatra, was appearing as a serial in the Kannada magazine Karma Veera. So, this Kashi Yatra extracted from the Karma Veera magazine. It was the story of an old lady who decided to go to Kashi to worship Lord Vishweshwara. In the story, there was also a young orphan girl. She could not marry because she had no money for the wedding. In the end, the old lady gives away all her savings to the girl without going to Kashi. She considered the happiness of the orphan girl more important than even worshipping Lord Vishweshwara at Kashi. So here, the Meghs and Karma Veera main theme goes to only two characters present here. So first one, old lady go to visit to the temple of Vishweshwara Swami. Another one, orphan girl. So she want to marry for wedding, but they had no money. So grandmother Krishnaka. So the narrator's grand never went to school, hence she could not read or write. Every Wednesday the Max and Karmavira would come. The grandmother would ask her 12-year-old girl to read the next episode of the story to her. She would listen to her with the greatest concentration. During the time, she would forget all her work. Later, she could repeat the entire textbook by her. The grandmother too never went to Kashi. She identified herself with the heroine of the novel. After listening to the next episode of Kashi Yatra, she would join her friends at the temple courtyard. She would discuss the latest episode with her friends. As usual, the weekly magazine had arrived and the author's absence of grandmother could not even read a letter of it. All her life took care of her family but never got the opportunity to learn the language. So when she opened the cover, it turned out to be Kashi Yatra, her favorite storybook. The biggest lessons of the story are absent about passions and devotion to learning. It takes hard work but also determination and a sense of humility. So she was crying at her failed attempts to read the story. The author consoled her and promised to teach her from the next day. So they fixed a deadline till the next Saraswati Puja to work according to a plan. Krishnaka was a devoted and hard-working student and learned the language within the fixed time period. On the day her graduation completed, so they inside the temple, she bent down and touched her feet and gifted her a frock material. So next day they are open to learn how to read a magazine. So according to grandmother's opinion, she thought that her grandmother was too young or experienced to teach her. She would have been able to learn from her. One should lose one's pride and arrogance to open doors of knowledge and understanding. So here, how I taught how I taught to read my grandmother. So in the story, what is the context? So it is her stories usually deals with complex psychological problems in the lives of ordinary people and were always very interesting. So simply say to how to read my grandmother. Okay, thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Madam Ji.